Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force cruiser Vigilant and watched the alien ships appear on his screens. They came out of nowhere, like silver ghosts materializing in the black void of space. 12 massive vessels, each one 3 times the size of his own ship, arranged themselves in a perfect circle around Earth's outer defense ring. "Sir, we're getting signals from the alien fleet," reported Lieutenant Amy Watson from her station. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies." Jake nodded and walked to the center of the bridge. In his 20 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The ships were beautiful in a cold, distant way. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal, catching the light from Earth's sun and throwing it back in rainbow patterns. "Put Dr. Rodriguez on the screen," Jake ordered. The main display flickered, and Dr. Lisa Rodriguez appeared. She was aboard the research vessel Discovery, positioned closer to the alien fleet. Her dark eyes were bright with excitement, but Jake could see the worry lines around them. "Captain Morrison, this is incredible," she said. "The alien ships are scanning everything. Our ships, our defense platforms, even Earth itself. Their technology is far beyond anything we have." Jake felt a cold weight in his stomach. Earth had only been traveling between the stars for 50 years. They had 3 small colonies and a handful of ships. If these aliens were hostile, humanity was in serious trouble. "Any response to our communication attempts?" he asked. "Yes, sir. They're responding now. I'm getting a translation matrix from their computers. Give me a few minutes to decode it." Jake waited, watching the alien ships on his screen. They moved with perfect coordination, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. Everything about them seemed planned and controlled. On the planet below, 3 billion humans went about their daily lives, unaware that first contact with an alien species was happening above their heads. Jake thought about his wife Sarah and their 2 children, probably having breakfast right now in their home in Colorado. He wondered if he would see them again. "Captain, I've got communication established," Dr. Rodriguez announced. "They call themselves the Zephyrian Collective. Their leader wants to speak with us." The screen changed, and Jake found himself looking at something that was definitely not human. The alien was tall and thin, with skin that looked like living crystal. Its eyes were large and completely black, and when it moved, light seemed to flow through its body like water. "I am Archon Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective," the alien said. Its voice was strange, like music played through broken glass. "We have come to evaluate your species for admission to galactic civilization." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful contact with your people." The alien's head tilted to one side. "We have completed our initial scans of your world and your species. The results are disturbing." Dr. Rodriguez appeared in a smaller window on the screen. "Disturbing? What do you mean?" "Your planet has been classified as a Class X death world," Archon Veltar said. "The gravity is crushing. The weather systems are violent and unpredictable. The ecosystem is filled with predators and toxins. No civilized species could survive." "In such conditions," Jake frowned, "Earth seems normal to us. It's our home." "That is precisely the problem," the alien replied. "You have evolved on a world that should be uninhabitable. Your species shows clear signs of predatory adaptation. High bone density, redundant organ systems, rapid healing, aggressive behavior patterns. You are what we classify as Deathworlders." The word hung in the space between them like a curse. Jake looked at Dr. Rodriguez, who seemed just as confused as he was. "I don't understand," Jake said. "What's wrong with being adapted to our world?" The alien's crystal skin seemed to darken. "In 50,000 years of galactic civilization, no sentient species has ever evolved on a death world. Such environments produce only monsters and killers. Your very existence is an impossibility that threatens the natural order. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward in her chair. Wait, you're saying that all other intelligent species in the galaxy evolved on peaceful worlds? Of course. Civilization requires peace, stability, and cooperation. Violence and aggression are evolutionary dead ends. They must be eliminated for a species to achieve true enlightenment. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. So what are you saying? That humans are naturally violent. Your history speaks for itself, Archon Veltar said. Thousands of years of warfare, competition, territorial disputes. You have turned conflict into an art form. Even now, as we speak, your governments are preparing for war rather than seeking understanding. The alien was right about that. Admiral Hayes had already activated defense protocols across the entire solar system. Every human military vessel was moving into position, and the colonies had been warned to prepare for possible attack. We've also achieved art, music, literature, and science, Dr. Rodriguez said. We're not just warriors. Your cultural achievements are irrelevant if they are built on a foundation of violence, the alien replied. The Zephyrian Collective has a responsibility to maintain galactic peace. We cannot allow a Deathworlder species to spread across the stars. Jake felt the temperature on the bridge seem to drop. What exactly are you saying? We are implementing a containment protocol. Your solar system will be isolated until we can determine the proper course of action. No human vessel will be permitted to leave this area. As if to prove the point, a shimmering barrier of energy began to form around the outer edge of the solar system. Jake watched in horror as it grew brighter and stronger, cutting off all the jump points that human ships used to travel to the colonies. You can't do this, Jake said. You're trapping our colony ships out there. The colonies will be dealt with separately, Archon Veltar said. For now, we offer your species a choice. You may accept genetic rehabilitation to remove your aggressive and competitive instincts, allowing you to join galactic civilization as productive members. Or you may face sterilization of your worlds to prevent the spread of Deathworlder contamination. The screen went dark, leaving Jake staring at his own reflection. Around him, the bridge crew sat in stunned silence. Sir, Lieutenant Watson said. Quietly, Admiral Hayes is requesting immediate communication. Jake nodded and activated the secure channel. Admiral Frank Hayes appeared on screen, his weathered face grim with determination. Captain Morrison, I trust you heard that conversation. Yes, sir. What are your orders? The old admiral was quiet for a moment. Then his eyes hardened with the look Jake had seen before, during the colony rebellions and the asteroid mining wars. They want to see Deathworlders, son? Then that's exactly what they're going to get. Activate Protocol Omega. All ships, all stations, all colonies. It's time to show these crystal peacekeepers what humans do when someone tries to put us in a cage. Jake felt a grim smile cross his face. The aliens had made one critical mistake in their evaluation of humanity. They thought being from a death world made humans monsters. They were about to learn that it also made them very, very dangerous when cornered. 3 months had passed since the Zephyrians trapped Earth's solar system behind their energy barrier. Colonel Pete Barnes crouched behind a pile of twisted metal on the colony world New Texas, watching the alien monitoring station through his binoculars. The crystalline structure rose from the red desert like a giant flower, its surfaces gleaming in the harsh sunlight. How many guards? Whispered Sergeant Kelly Murphy, crawling up beside him. Her face was streaked with dirt and sweat, and her modified mining laser hung across her back. 4 that I can see, Pete replied. Same as yesterday. These crystal heads don't seem to learn, Kelly grinned. She had been a mining engineer before the war started, but now she spent her time turning industrial equipment into weapons. Her latest creation was a fusion cutter that could slice through Zephyrian armor like butter. "Remember, we need one of them alive," Pete said. "Command wants to know how their technology works." The attack came at dawn, just as it had for weeks. Pete's Marines moved like shadows across the desert, using every rock and crater for cover. The Zephyrians had sensors that could detect human movement, but they were designed to spot civilized beings who moved in predictable patterns. They had trouble tracking humans who crawled on their bellies and used natural camouflage. The first alien guard never saw the attack coming. Kelly's modified laser punched through its crystal chest before it could sound an alarm. The second guard managed to raise its weapon, but Pete was already moving. He tackled the tall alien with his full body weight, and they both crashed to the ground. The Zephyrian was stronger than a human, but it was also fragile. When Pete's elbow connected with its head, the crystal cracked like glass. The alien made a sound like wind chimes breaking and went still. "Damn it," Pete muttered. "That's the third one this week." The other two guards were trying to retreat into their station, but they moved too slow. Pete's Marines surrounded them within seconds. One alien raised its hands in surrender, its black eyes wide with what looked like terror. "Please," it said in broken English, "no violence." "Violence is wrong." Pete stared at the creature. After 3 months of fighting, he still couldn't understand these aliens. They had technology that could destroy planets, but they acted like children when faced with actual combat. "Then why did you attack our world?" Pete demanded. "Not attack," the alien said. "Contain, for safety. Deathworlders dangerous." Kelly walked up, wiping alien blood off her hands. "Boss, we got their communication system working. Command wants to talk to this one." An hour later, Pete was back at the hidden Marine base, watching. Admiral Hayes questioned the captured Zephyrian through a video link. The alien sat in a containment cell. Its crystal body dim with what the humans had learned was fear. "Tell me about your collective," Admiral Hayes said. His voice was calm, but Pete could see the anger in his eyes. "We bring peace," the alien replied. "For 50,000 years, we guide galaxy. Remove dangerous traits. Create harmony." "You mean you lobotomize entire species," Dr. Rodriguez said. She had been studying captured Zephyrian biotechnology for weeks. "We found your genetic modification records. You've altered hundreds of species." The alien tilted its head. "Remove aggression. Remove competition. Remove pain. Better this way." "Admiral." Hayes leaned forward. "And what gives you the right to decide that? We are first. We are wise. Other species thank us." Pete snorted. From what they had learned, the other species in the galaxy were barely more than pets. They had been genetically altered to be completely dependent on Zephyrian guidance. Captain Ryan Torres appeared on another screen. He was broadcasting from his stealth ship Ghost Runner, somewhere outside the barrier. "Admiral, I've made contact with 3 other species. You're not going to believe this." The screen split to show strange creatures. One looked like a walking plant, another was some kind of energy being, and the third resembled a giant butterfly. All of them seemed nervous and confused. "These are the Valkyrie, the Sunhai, and the Morgan," Ryan explained. "They've been under Zephyrian control for thousands of years. None of them have ever seen warfare. They don't even have concepts for fighting or competition." Admiral Hayes stared at the alien beings. "They've never fought?" "Never, sir. The Zephyrians removed those instincts from their ancestors. They literally don't understand what conflict means. When I showed them recordings of human history, they became physically ill." Pete watched the captured Zephyrian's reaction. The alien seemed proud of this information. "See," it said. "We bring peace. Remove suffering." "You've turned them into sheep," Kelly said angrily. "What happens when something threatens them?" "Nothing threatens," the alien replied. "We protect, we guide, galaxy is safe." Dr. Rodriguez spoke up from her laboratory on Earth. "Admiral, I've finished analyzing their genetic modification techniques. It's worse than we thought. They don't just remove aggression, they remove creativity, independence, even curiosity. These species can't think for themselves anymore." Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and faced the captured alien. "You want to know what makes humans different?" he said. "It's not just that we evolved on a dangerous world, it's that we learned to fight back. When something tries to destroy us, we don't surrender. We adapt, we overcome, and we get stronger." The alien shrank back in its cell. "Dangerous thinking. This why you must be contained." "Maybe," Admiral Hayes said. "But here's the problem with your containment. You built a cage, but you put yourselves in it with us." The alien looked confused. "What do you mean?" Admiral Hayes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Your barrier works both ways. It keeps us from getting out, but it also keeps anyone from getting in, including your reinforcements." Pete saw understanding dawn in the alien's black eyes, followed immediately by fear. "In 3 months, we've learned to use your technology," Admiral Hayes continued. "We've captured your weapons, reverse-engineered your computers, and figured out your weaknesses. Every day we get stronger, while you get more isolated." On the screen, Captain Torres nodded. "Sir, the other species are asking questions they've never asked before. Meeting humans has awakened something in them. Some of them are starting to remember what their ancestors were like before the modifications." "That's impossible," the captured alien said. "Genetic change is permanent, cannot be reversed." Dr. Rodriguez laughed. "That's what you think. But you've never dealt with humans before. We specialize in impossible problems." Admiral Hayes walked closer to the cell. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to contact your collective and tell them we want to negotiate. They will not negotiate with Deathworlders. Then they'll learn what Deathworlders can really do when they're pushed too far," Admiral Hayes said. "Because if you don't start talking to us like equals, we're going to break out of this cage. And when we do, we're going to pay your home worlds a visit." The alien's crystal body began to glow brighter, which the humans had learned meant extreme distress. "You cannot," it whispered. "Galaxy not ready for Deathworlders." "Then maybe it's time the galaxy learned to be ready," Admiral Hayes replied. Pete grinned as he watched the alien's reaction. 3 months ago, the Zephyrians had thought they could control humanity by trapping them. Now they were beginning to understand their mistake. You don't cage a predator unless you're absolutely certain the cage will hold dot and human cages. Pete knew had a tendency to break at the worst possible moment. General Marcus Stone stood in the war room deep beneath New York City, staring at the tactical display that showed the entire solar system. Red dots marked Zephyrian positions, while blue dots showed human forces. 6 months ago there had been 12 red dots and maybe 30 blue ones. Now there were 8 red dots and over 200 blue ones. "Sir, the new Eden Strike Force is in position," reported Commander Beth Williams from her flagship. Her voice came through the speakers with static, but her excitement was clear. Marcus nodded and turned to Dr. Helen Parker, who was monitoring the enhanced soldiers in the next room. Through the reinforced glass, he could see Lieutenant Alex Chin and 11 other volunteers sitting in meditation poses, their bodies perfectly still. "How are they holding up?" Marcus asked. Helen checked her instruments. Heart rates are steady at 140. Reaction times are down to 12 milliseconds. Brain activity is off the charts. The combat enhancement drugs are working better than we hoped. Marcus watched Alex through the window. The young pilot looked calm, but Marcus could see the subtle signs, the way his fingers twitched slightly, the alertness in his posture even while sitting still. The enhancement drugs didn't just make humans faster and stronger. They unlocked something deeper, something that had been bred into the species during millions of years of survival on a deadly world. "General Stone," came another voice through. "The communication system. This is Captain Morrison aboard the Vigilant. We're detecting movement from the Zephyrian command ship." Marcus walked to the main display. The alien vessels had been trying different tactics for weeks, but nothing worked against human unpredictability. When the Zephyrians used energy weapons, humans developed mirror armor that bounced the beams back. When the aliens tried to jam communications, humans switched to backup systems the Zephyrians didn't even know existed. "All units, this is General Stone," Marcus announced. "Execute Pack Protocol 7. Across the solar system, human ships began to move. But they didn't move like the organized formations the Zephyrians expected. Instead, they scattered like a pack of wolves, each group taking a different approach to the alien vessels. On the main screen, Marcus watched as the enhanced pilots launched from their carriers. Alex Chen led the first squadron, his fighter dancing through space in patterns that defied logic. The Zephyrian defensive computers couldn't track him because he wasn't following any predictable flight path. "Contact in 30 seconds, Alex reported over the radio. Marcus could hear the change in his voice. The enhancement drugs were fully active now, turning the pilot into something that was still human, but also something more. The Zephyrian ships opened fire with their crystal beam weapons, filling space with deadly light. But the human fighters moved like they were alive, weaving between the beams with impossible precision. Marcus had seen recordings of Earth predators hunting in packs, and that was exactly how the human pilots fought. Coordinated but chaotic, each one adapting to the situation in real time. "Target their sensor arrays first," Alex called out. "Make them blind." The human fighters swarmed over the nearest Zephyrian ship like angry insects. Their weapons were crude compared to the alien technology, but they were used with surgical precision. Within moments, the crystal ship was spinning helplessly. Its sensors destroyed dot in space. Captain Morrison led the Vigilant and 3 other cruisers in a flanking maneuver. The Zephyrians tried to respond with their standard defensive formation. But the humans had studied alien tactics for months. Every move the Zephyrians made had been predicted and countered. "Sir," called Lieutenant Watson from the Vigilance bridge. "We're getting panic broadcasts from the alien ships. They're requesting immediate retreat." Marcus smiled grimly. The enhancement program wasn't just about making humans faster or stronger. It was about unleashing the predatory instincts that civilization had tamed. For 6 months, humans had been polite and restrained, trying to negotiate. Now they were showing the Zephyrians what they really were underneath all that civilization. "Dr. Parker," Marcus said, "how are the psychological warfare broadcasts working?" Helen grinned. "Better than expected. We're transmitting recordings of human military history, survival documentaries, and predator behavior studies on all frequencies. The Zephyrians are having what can only be described as species-wide panic attacks. The plan was simple and brutal. Humans didn't just fight with weapons, they fought with fear. Every transmission to the aliens included recordings of humans surviving impossible situations, adapting to deadly environments, and overcoming superior enemies through pure stubbornness. On the tactical display, Marcus watched as another Zephyrian ship went dark. The aliens weren't being destroyed, they were surrendering. Their crystalline minds couldn't cope with the chaotic, adaptive fighting style that humans had developed. "General Stone, this is Torres on the Ghost Runner," came Ryan's voice from outside the barrier. "You need to hear this." The screen flickered, showing Captain Torres standing next to one of the butterfly-like aliens they had contacted earlier. But this alien looked different now. Its wings were brighter, its posture more alert. "Tell the General what you told me," Ryan said to the alien. The creature's voice was like musical chimes, but there was something new in it, determination. "We remember," it said. "Watching humans fight, We remember what our ancestors were before. The collective changed us. We remember being strong. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? Other species are waking up, Ryan explained. Seeing humans resist the Zephyrians has triggered something in their genetic memory. They're starting to question everything the collective taught them. This was bigger than just Earth fighting. For freedom. Humanity's resistance was inspiring an entire galaxy of suppressed species to remember what they had lost. Sir, Commander Williams reported from her ship. The Zephyrian command vessel is signaling for communication. Marcus nodded. Put them through. Archon Veltar appeared on the screen, but the proud crystal being from 6 months ago was gone. This alien looked defeated, its normally bright body dim with exhaustion. General Stone, the alien said. We wish to discuss terms. Terms? Marcus laughed. 6 months ago, you wanted to lobotomize our entire species. Now you want to negotiate? We did not understand, Veltar said. We thought Deathworlders were simply violent. We did not realize you were ... double quotes. He paused, searching for words. What? Marcus demanded. Infectious, the alien finished. Your resistance is spreading. Other species are remembering what they were before we helped them achieve peace. The order we have maintained for 50,000 years is collapsing. Marcus looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was in full retreat, but that wasn't the real victory. The real victory was happening across the galaxy as species. That had been peaceful sheep for millennia were starting to remember how to be wolves. Here are our terms, Marcus said. Remove the barrier around our solar system immediately. Withdraw all Zephyrian forces from human space. And prepare to answer. For 50,000 years of genetic slavery. The alien's body flickered with distress. You do not understand the consequences. If the galactic species regain their natural instincts, there will be chaos, war, suffering. Maybe, Marcus replied, but that's their choice to make, not yours. Archon. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. The barrier will be lowered within the hour, but General Stone, what you have started cannot be stopped. The galaxy will never be the same. Marcus smiled. As the alien transmission ended, the Zephyrians had tried to cage humanity, thinking they could control the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Instead, they had created something far worse from their perspective, teachers. Humans were now showing every suppressed species in the galaxy how to bite back. The beast was loose, and it was spreading faster than the Zephyrians could contain it. Captain Beth Williams stood on the bridge of her flagship Thunderbird, watching the paradise world of Zephyria Prime grow larger on the main screen. The planet was beautiful beyond anything she had ever seen. Crystal cities that sparkled like jewels, floating gardens that defied gravity, and oceans that glowed with soft blue light. It doesn't look like the home of galactic oppressors, said Tactical Officer Sam Johnson, studying his instruments. No weapons platforms, no defense shields, no military installations at all. Beth nodded grimly. After breaking through the barrier around Earth's solar system, the human fleet had followed the retreating Zephyrians straight to their home territory. What they found was shocking, a civilization that had forgotten how to defend itself. Dr. Kim, what are you reading from the planet? Beth asked. Dr. Robert Kim looked up from his behavioral analysis station. The entire population is in a state of panic, Captain. We're detecting mass evacuations from the cities closest to our approach vector. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, begging us not to hurt them. Beth felt a strange mixture of anger and pity. These were the beings who had tried to lobotomize humanity, but now they were acting like frightened children. Through the ship's communication system, she could hear the alien broadcasts that Dr. Kim was monitoring. Please, Deathworlders, came one transmission. We meant no harm. We only wanted peace. Do not bring violence to our world. Captain Williams, came Admiral Hayes' voice from Earth. Remember, our mission is intelligence gathering, not conquest. We need to understand how their system works before we make any permanent decisions. Understood, sir, Beth replied. But she could see the hungry looks on her crew's faces. After months of being trapped and threatened, they wanted revenge. The human fleet entered orbit around Zephyra Prime, and the planet's response was immediate. Crystal ships began fleeing in all directions, but they moved slowly and in predictable patterns. If the humans had wanted to destroy them, it would have been easy. Sir, we're getting a transmission from the planetary government, reported Communications Officer Lisa Chang. The main screen flickered, showing a group of Zephyrians in what looked like a council chamber. Their crystal bodies were dim with fear, and several of them were actually shaking. I am Prime Coordinator Zalthek, said the central figure. We surrender unconditionally. Please do not harm our population. Beth exchanged glances with Sam Johnson. The aliens were surrendering before the humans had even made any demands. We're not here to harm anyone, Beth said. We want to understand your government and your control over other species. The alien coordinator seemed confused. You are not here to conquer? To take revenge for our containment of your world. That depends on what we find, Beth replied honestly. Over the next few hours, Beth led a small team down to the planet's surface. What they discovered was a world that had never known real conflict. The Zephyrian cities were works of art, filled with beings who spent their time creating beautiful things and discussing philosophy. Dr. Kim walked beside Beth through the crystal corridors of the government complex, taking notes on everything. He saw, Captain, look at their architecture. No defensive positions, no secure areas, no emergency protocols. They've never planned for war, because they can't imagine it. They were escorted by a group of nervous Zephyrian officials to a vast chamber, where the species' history was displayed in holographic form. The displays showed 50,000 years of gradual expansion across the galaxy, but it wasn't conquest. In any human sense, it was more like gardening. We find primitive species and help them evolve beyond violence, explained Coordinator Zalthek. We remove the genetic patterns that cause suffering and replace them with peaceful ones. It is a gift we give freely. Beth studied the displays, watching as species after species was transformed from their natural state into docile, dependent beings. You don't see this as slavery? Slavery? The alien seemed genuinely confused. We provide food, shelter, guidance, protection. We eliminate war, hunger, disease, competition. How can this be slavery? Because you took away their choice, Sam said angrily. You decided what was best for them without asking. Dr. Kim was examining biological records on another display. Captain, according to this data, they've modified over 300 species across 2,000 star systems. They've essentially created a galaxy of pets. The scope of it was staggering. Entire civilizations had been reduced to the intellectual level of children, dependent on Zephyrian guidance for everything. They couldn't make decisions, couldn't defend themselves, couldn't even imagine being independent. Sir, came Lisa's voice through Beth's communication device. We're getting reports from the scout ships. The other worlds in this system are the same, beautiful, peaceful, and completely defenseless. Beth felt a cold realization settle over her. The Zephyrians weren't evil in any human sense. They genuinely believed they were helping the galaxy by removing conflict and competition. But the result was the same as if they had been malicious conquerors. Coordinator Zalthek, Beth said. What happens when a species resists your modifications? The alien's body flickered with discomfort. Resistance is rare. Most species welcome peace once they understand its benefits. But some resist, Sam pressed. In the early years, yes. But resistant species always destroy themselves through warfare eventually. We simply wait for them to request our help. Doctor. Kim looked up from his datapad. Captain, I'm reading about something called the Korthak incident. It happened about 10,000 years ago. The Zephyrian coordinator became visibly distressed. The Korthak were an exception. They were violent even by Deathworld standards. When they refused modification, they began conquering other species and using them as soldiers. What happened to them? Beth asked. They were contained, Zolthek sighed quietly. Their star system was isolated until their aggressive nature led to self-destruction. Beth felt her blood run cold. You let an entire species die? They chose violence over peace. There was no other option. Sam stepped forward, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. And that's what you plan to do to humanity if we didn't accept your modifications. The alien nodded slowly. Your species showed the same patterns as the Korthak. We could not risk another galactic war. Beth activated her communicator. Admiral Hayes, are you monitoring this? Every word, Captain. Dr. Rodriguez has been analyzing. They're historical records from her end. The situation is worse than we thought. Dr. Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation. Captain Williams, I found evidence of at least 12 species that were completely eliminated for refusing modification. The Zephyrians have been committing genocide for millennia, and they don't even realize it. Beth looked at the alien coordinator, who seemed genuinely confused by the humans' anger. To the Zephyrians, eliminating violent species was like removing weeds from a garden. Coordinator Zolthek, Beth said carefully, we need access to your historical records and your genetic modification technology. Of course, the alien replied quickly. We will provide anything you require. Please, we only want peace. Good, Beth said. Because we're going to need that information to undo 50,000 years of damage. The alien's crystal body went completely dark. Undo, but that would bring back violence, competition, suffering. The galaxy would tear itself apart. Maybe, Beth said, but that's not your decision to make anymore. Sam smiled grimly. Captain, Admiral Hayes is requesting a full report. Command wants to know if we're looking at a military occupation or a liberation campaign. Beth looked around the crystal chamber, with its beautiful displays showing 50,000 years of systematic oppression disguised as help. The Zephyrians had created a galaxy of children, dependent and helpless. Now humanity had to decide whether to become their new caretakers or to force them to grow up. Tell the Admiral we're looking at both, Beth said. These people need to be stopped, but the species they've modified need to be helped. We're going to be here for a very long time. Outside the crystal windows, the human fleet maintained its position in orbit. Below them, a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for 50 millennia waited to learn its fate from the Deathworlders they had tried to cage. The predators had found their way into paradise, and nothing would ever be the same. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the great hall of the former Zephyrian Council building, watching delegates from dozens of species argue with each other for the first time in 50,000 years. The beautiful crystal chamber echoed with voices, raised in anger, frustration, and confusion as beings who had been peaceful for millennia tried to remember how to disagree. This is chaos, muttered Ambassador Jennifer Walsh, who had spent 6 months trying to organize a new galactic government. Half of them want us to rule them, and the other half want to go to war with their neighbors. Jake nodded, watching a group of plant-like Velkari shout at some butterfly-winged Morden about territory disputes that hadn't mattered for thousands of years. Dr. Nancy Foster had successfully reversed many of the genetic modifications the Zephyrians had imposed, but the results were messy. Ambassador Walsh, this is General Brooks from Sector 7, came a voice through Jake's communication device. We've got another situation here. Jake activated the holographic display, showing General Tyler Brooks standing in what looked like a refugee camp. Behind him, thousands of aliens of various species sat in organized rows, all of them looking lost and confused. "What's the problem, General?" Jake asked. "These are Zephyrian civilians from the outer colonies," Tyler explained. "Their own government abandoned them when we arrived. They're asking us to take care of them because they don't know how to take care of themselves." Jake sighed. It was the same problem everywhere. The Zephyrians had created a galaxy where no one knew how to be independent. Even their own people had become dependent on their government for everything. "Sir," said Captain Amy Watson, who now served as Jake's aide, "Dr. Foster is requesting permission to begin the restoration program on the Zephyrian population." Jake looked at the genetic scientist, who was working at a portable laboratory in the corner of the hall. Nancy had spent months developing techniques to undo the Zephyrian modifications, but the process was dangerous and not always successful. "Doctor, what are the risks?" Jake asked. Nancy looked up from her equipment. "For species that were modified recently, within the last few thousand years, we have about an 80% success rate. For older modifications, it drops to about 50%, and for the Zephyrians themselves." She paused. "What about the Zephyrians?" "They've been modifying themselves for so long that their natural aggression and independence have been almost completely eliminated. Restoring them could kill them, or it could turn them into something completely different." Ambassador Walsh walked over to join the conversation. "Admiral, we need to make a decision about the Kethmoran Coalition. They're demanding we help them reclaim territory they lost to the Velkari 15,000 years ago." Jake rubbed his temples. The Kethmoran were one of the species that had responded most enthusiastically to genetic restoration. Unfortunately, the first thing they remembered was a grudge against their neighbors that was older than human civilization. "What do you recommend?" Jake asked. "Honestly, we need to choose between being galactic peacekeepers or letting these species work things out for themselves. We can't do both." The main doors of the hall opened, and Captain Torres walked in with a group of beings Jake had never seen before. They were tall and covered in what looked like metallic scales, and they moved with the predatory grace that Jake recognized from watching his own species. "Admiral Morrison," Ryan said, "I'd like you to meet the Sectar. They're from the Galactic Rim, outside Zephyrian space." The lead alien stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. "Admiral, I am War Leader Thexai of the Sectar Empire. We have been watching your conflict with the Collective with great interest." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "War Leader? We are what you humans would call a natural Deathworld species," Thexai explained. "Like you, we evolved on a hostile world and maintained our aggressive instincts. Unlike you, we decided long ago that the galaxy needed strong leadership." Ambassador Walsh stepped closer to Jake. "Admiral, our intelligence suggests the Sectar control about 200 systems on the far edge of the galaxy. They've been expanding slowly for centuries. We stayed away from Zephyrian space because their peaceful species made poor soldiers," Thexai continued. "But now that you have awakened their natural instincts, we see opportunity for profitable alliances." Jake didn't like the sound of that. "What kind of alliances?" "Your species and ours could divide the galaxy between us. You rule the former collective territory. We expand into the newly awakened systems. Together, we could bring order to the chaos you have created." The hall fell silent as every delegate stopped arguing to listen. Jake could see fear in many of their eyes. Fear of humans, fear of the Sectar, fear of the future itself. "And if we refuse?" Jake asked. Thexai smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Then we will take what we want anyway. But it would be easier with human cooperation." General Brooks appeared on the communication screen again. "Admiral, we're detecting massive fleet movements on the Galactic Rim. Looks like the Sectar are mobilizing for something big." Jake looked around the hall at all the confused, frightened faces. 6 months ago, these beings had lived in perfect peace under Zephyrian rule. Now they were caught between two Deathworld species arguing over their future. "War leader HFY," Jake said finally. "I appreciate your offer, but humanity didn't. Fight the Zephyrians just to become the new oppressors." The alien's expression hardened. "Then you are fools. These species cannot govern themselves. They need strong guidance." "Maybe," Jake said. "But that guidance should come from teachers, not conquerors." Dr. Foster spoke up from her laboratory. "Admiral, I've been monitoring the restoration procedures across the galaxy. The species that are doing best are the ones where we've provided support and education, not control." Ambassador Walsh nodded. "The Velkari have established their own democratic council. The Mordan are developing trade agreements with their neighbors. It's messy, but they're learning." Jake made his decision. "War leader, you can tell your empire that Earth will not be joining any conquest campaigns. We're here to help these species rebuild, not to rule them." HFY's scales darkened with anger. "You will regret this choice, humans. The galaxy is not large enough for two Deathworld powers." After the Sectar delegation left, the hall erupted in nervous chatter. Several alien delegates approached Jake, their faces filled with worry. "Admiral Morrison," said a butterfly-winged Mordan, "will you protect us from the Sectar?" Jake looked at the alien, then at all the other faces turned toward him. They were still looking for someone to take care of them, to make their decisions for them. "We'll help you protect yourselves," Jake said. "But you need to learn to stand on your own." Ambassador Walsh activated the main holographic display, showing a map of the galaxy. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all species were proposing the formation of a galactic defense alliance. Membership is voluntary, leadership is rotational, and the primary goal is mutual protection and support. Dr. Foster added, "We'll continue the genetic restoration programs for any species that wants them, but the choice belongs to each individual. No more forced modifications, no more species-wide decisions made by others." General Brooks appeared on screen again. "Admiral, the Zephyrians are requesting permission to join the Alliance. Apparently, they want protection from the Sectar too." Jake almost smiled. The former galactic rulers were now asking for help from the species they had. "Once controlled, permission granted," Jake said. "Everyone gets a chance to start over." As the delegates began discussing the new alliance structure, Jake walked to the crystal windows overlooking the Zephyrian capital. In the distance, he could see human ships patrolling alongside vessels from a dozen other species. It wasn't the perfect peace the Zephyrians had created, but it was honest. Captain Watson joined him at the window. "Sir, do you think we made the right choice? We could have ruled the galaxy." Jake thought about Earth, about the colonies, about the billions of humans who had fought so hard for their freedom. "Amy, we didn't fight to become the thing we were fighting against. We fought to have the right to choose our own path. And now everyone gets that choice." "Now everyone gets that choice," Jake confirmed, "even if they make mistakes along the way." Outside, the galaxy was learning to be free again. It would be messy, dangerous, and uncertain. But for the first time in 50,000 years, every species would have the right to decide their own destiny. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. They had shown the galaxy how to bite back against oppression. Now it was time to show them how to build something better in its place.